Hi there. Welcome to today's training video. In this video, we'll cover how to interpret the AP language rubric. We'll break it down step by step to make sure you have a strong grasp of each component. By the time you're done, scoring student practice essays will be a breeze. Let's begin. The first free response question on the AP exam is the synthesis essay. The prompt will ask students to take a stance on a given topic, using evidence from at least 3 of 6 provided sources to support their claim. Students are given 15 minutes to read through the sources and 40 minutes to write the synthesis. All 3 essays are scored on a 6-point rubric. Students may receive up to 1 point for their thesis, up to 4 points for evidence and commentary, and up to 1 point for sophistication. Let's take a closer look at how students can earn points in each category. The thesis point is usually the easiest to obtain. Students earn it by responding to the prompt with a thesis that presents a defensible position. This could include their take on anything from the value of vertical farming to including STEM programs in schools. While it may seem simple, the thesis point can be tricky. Students will not earn the point for merely restating information in the prompt or providing a summary of positions someone could take on the issue without actually taking one themselves. This is called the "some say it's good, while others say it's bad" response. Finally, students won't earn the point if there is a thesis, but it's off topic and doesn't address the prompt. It's also worth noting that a student's thesis may be more than 1 sentence long, if those sentences are in close proximity. The thesis may also fall anywhere in the response. It's not uncommon for students to place their thesis in the conclusion of their essay, so be sure to read the full response before scoring. Finally, students may provide reasons for their thesis, also known as a line of reasoning, but they are not required to do so. They are scored separately on how they include and analyze evidence, so that shouldn't affect whether they earn the thesis point. Now let's take a look at the second scoring category, evidence and commentary. This is where students earn the bulk of their rubric points. It's also where students will spend the majority of their time when writing the essays, since evidence and commentary are usually located in body paragraphs. Therefore, it's important to take time to internalize keywords in this part of the rubric so you can help your students understand the difference between a 1, 2, 3, and 4. An essay earns 0 points in this category if it merely repeats information that was already provided in the prompt, or, for the synthesis essay specifically, it references fewer than 2 of the 6 provided sources. Essays that earn 0 points for evidence and commentary are usually off-topic, incoherent, or just opinion-based with no textual references. Essays that earn 1 point in this category have either provided evidence from or at least referenced 2 of the provided sources. The student may have summarized the sources without explaining how they support the student's argument. This category is what I like to call your typical book report response. The student knew how to summarize the sources but didn't understand how to use them to support a claim. The 2 and 3 point categories are common landing zones for most students. To earn 2 points, students have provided evidence from or referenced at least 3 sources. They have also explained how some of the evidence supports their thesis. However, they do not build on their argument or establish a line of reasoning. Or if they do, it may not make logical sense. Keywords to help you recognize essays in this category include explain some evidence, or consist of a mix of specific evidence and broad generalities. The quality of these arguments will be uneven. The student may make 1 point well in 1 body paragraph but fail to fully support more than 1 claim. Or, they may not explain how different claims all connect to each other, so there isn't a line of reasoning in which the argument builds as it progresses. The 3-point category is where arguments start becoming more sophisticated and complex, so this is a good goal for students to work toward if they begin the year writing in the 1 or 2-point categories. To earn 3 points, students must provide specific evidence from at least 3 sources. The best way to ensure evidence is specific enough is to incorporate short quoted passages of text. All claims in all body paragraphs are supported with evidence. The student must also explain how some of that evidence supports their line of reasoning. Keywords to help you recognize an essay in this category include uniformly offers evidence, specific evidence, and line of reasoning. Rather than over-relying on summarizing or paraphrasing sources, the student will focus on specific words and details in the texts. Their claims will build upon each other in a line of reasoning. Most points established in body paragraphs will be logical and strongly supported, though there may still be one point where commentary or analysis falls short. Think of this category as the inverse of the 2-point category. Finally, we arrive at the 4-point category. Like the 3-point category, students who earn 4 points provide specific evidence from at least 3 sources to support all claims in a line of reasoning. Unlike the 3-point category, students who earn 4 points consistently explain how all evidence supports their line of reasoning, rather than just some of the evidence. The key word here is consistently. Essays that earn 4 points have to be consistent and uniform with their analysis of how evidence supports the student's claims. The focus is once again on specific words and details from the sources, and the argument is organized as a line of reasoning that builds on itself with multiple supporting claims, each with adequate evidence that is clearly explained. Again, keywords are consistent, uniform, and adequate. The essay does not have to be perfect to earn 4 points, nor does it have to be free of grammatical errors. Grammar does not affect a student's score unless it's so poor it distracts from or muddles the meaning of the student's argument. In those specific cases, a student may not earn 4 points. The final rubric component is the sophistication category, also sometimes known as the style category. Essays that try to contextualize an argument or suggest multiple viewpoints on an issue without fully exploring them won't earn this point. These essays tend to use sweeping generalizations and overused phrases like, "in today's society." Students also won't earn this point by trying to sound fancy with complex-sounding language that doesn't actually add anything to the argument. A student does earn this point by demonstrating sophistication of thought and/or a complex understanding of the rhetorical situation. This essentially means they are taking into consideration how contextual factors such as time, place, genre, speaker, and purpose shape arguments made in the sources or in the student's own argument. There are several different ways a student can acknowledge and explore these complexities to earn the point. First, they can explore tensions across sources. Do sources contradict one another? How does the student respond to these complexities? Second, they can articulate implications or limitations of their argument or arguments from the sources. For example, if their thesis holds true, what impact might this have on society in the future? Are there any scenarios in which their thesis wouldn't apply? Students who do this well will add qualifiers to their claims. Thirdly, students can earn this point by making effective rhetorical choices that consistently strengthen and enforce the impact of their arguments. Most likely, this means they have organized a really strong line of reasoning with logical steps that build on one another in such a way that the reader cannot help but see the value of the student's conclusion. Lastly, they can earn this point by employing a consistently vivid and persuasive writing style. The key word here, once again, is consistent. It will be clear that this is the student's natural writing style. In other words, the sophistication point should only be awarded if complex thought or writing style is consistent throughout the argument, not merely one phrase or reference. And while grammar is not specifically scored on this rubric, writing with consistently poor grammar probably won't earn the sophistication point. Many teachers and students consider this to be the most difficult point to earn on the rubric, but don't let that deter your students from trying. With 4 ways to earn the point, they can practice until they find a strategy that works for them. Also, it's entirely possible to earn a 5 on the AP exam without earning the sophistication on any of the 3 essays, so rather than getting stuck on this point, a better strategy may be to have students focus on evidence and commentary, since that's where the bulk of the points are. Now let's talk for a moment about the Q2. This is the rhetorical analysis essay in which students will be given one longer passage around 500 words in length and asked to analyze the rhetorical choices the author uses to create his or her argument. The passage will be an excerpt from a nonfiction source like a speech or an essay. Students will be provided with the context of the rhetorical situation in the prompt. Their thesis, in this case, will analyze the effectiveness of the rhetorical choices the author makes. Although the task students will be expected to do differs for each question, the rubric for the Q2 and Q3 essays is very similar to the Q1 essay. We won't spend a ton of time going over them, but I do want to highlight some key differences in the evidence and commentary sections of the rubric. As you can see, the evidence and commentary portion of the Q2 rubric looks similar to the Q1 rubric. However, there are some key differences. Since students aren't working with multiple sources this time, they are only scored on how well they incorporate evidence from the single source to support their claims about the author's argument. Students earn a 1 for summarizing the author's argument or providing general evidence without explaining how it supports their thesis. They may mention some rhetorical choices the author makes, like using metaphors, juxtaposition, imagery, or appeals to logic, emotion, and credibility, but these choices are merely identified, not explained. The student probably won't be able to point to specific details or techniques, but will instead speak in broad generalities. Just like on the Q1 rubric, the student earns 2 points on the Q2 rubric here for providing a mix of specific evidence and broad generalities. They may explain how some of the evidence relates to the student's own argument or thesis, but the line of reasoning is either faulty or lacking altogether. For essays in this category, you'll see simplistic, inaccurate, or repetitive explanations that don't strengthen the student's argument. For example, a student might misidentify a rhetorical device or misunderstand the author's message. Conversely, the student may correctly identify rhetorical devices or strategies but be mostly unable to explain how they function to create meaning in the work as a whole. They may make 1 point well but aren't able to adequately develop multiple claims or explain connections between points. To earn 3 points in this category, the student must provide specific evidence to support all claims. They must explain how the evidence supports their own thesis and build on their points to create a line of reasoning. And they must address how at least one rhetorical choice in the passage contributes to the author's overall purpose or message, in other words, the rhetorical situation as a whole. Essays in this category will offer uniform evidence to support all claims in body paragraphs. This will most likely take the form of short, quoted passages from the text where the student focuses on keywords and details, not paraphrasing multiple sentences or paragraphs from the author's argument. As with the Q1 rubric, think of the 3-point category as the inverse of the 2-point category. Instead of making 1 point well with other points that are weak, essays in this category will make most points well with 1 point that is still somewhat weak. Finally, to earn 4 points on the Q2 rubric, the student will provide specific evidence to support all claims in a line of reasoning, consistently explain how the evidence supports the claims, and explain how multiple rhetorical choices in the passage contribute to the author's overall purpose or message. The goal here is to offer both evidence and commentary or analysis that are uniform, consistent, and adequate. Body paragraphs will make a claim that supports the thesis, provide adequate evidence that focuses on specific words or details from the passage, and consistently explain how that evidence supports the student's claim. The student will then connect that point back to the thesis and to the work as a whole. Students who can situate the argument within a broader context like this are also likely to earn the sophistication point. Now let's take a quick look at the Q3 rubric. Now we come to our final free response question, the Q3 argument essay. In this prompt, students will be introduced to a topic or issue on which they will be asked to take a defensible position. There aren't any outside sources to read here, so all evidence will have to come from the student's own brain. This gives them the opportunity to use their creativity and draw upon examples from history, science, literature, or even personal experience to support their claims. Because the possibilities are so open-ended, many students think this is the most fun of the 3 essays. The rubric for the Q3 is essentially the same as the rubric for the Q2. Students who tend to summarize with general information but don't explain how it supports their thesis earn 1 point. Students who provide a mix of specific and general evidence that offers simplistic explanations and no line of reasoning earn 2 points. Students who provide specific evidence to support all claims in a line of reasoning, but who may fail to fully analyze one of their claims earn 3 points. Students who provide consistent evidence and adequate analysis for all claims in the line of reasoning earn 4 points. As a final note on this section of the rubric, students who use literary examples as evidence are not expected to memorize direct quotes from sources. However, they should be able to paraphrase speakers and/or describe specific scenes from the text that support their claim. If students use a fictional source like a novel or play, they need to be able to explain how the themes or situations described in it reflect truths about the real-world topic they're discussing. A variety of different types of evidence is usually the best way to strengthen an argument. There you have it. You have now familiarized yourself with the AP language rubric and may begin using it to quickly and effectively score your students' practice essays. It'd also be a good idea to teach the rubric to your students, having them annotate it and highlight keywords in each column, so they, too, understand how to achieve the scores they desire. Allow them to use the rubric to score sample essays from AP Classroom or even peer review each other, and you'll be amazed at how quickly their writing improves. From now until the AP exam in May, happy scoring!